Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. All right, welcome in. Avs fall in Minnesota 2-1 in the shootout, but Meghan, they do pick up a point. And truthfully, in this type of situation, you'll take a point there. It's not like Minnesota, picks up 2 points on you. You still keep a little bit of that separation there. Avs on the second night of a back-to-back. Look, I actually liked this game for the Avs less and less as it went on, but I think that's maybe kind of expected here on the second night of a back-to-back with Minnesota waiting. Avs looked like they got tired, kind of ran out of energy there, but they find a way to get the goal late. It's y'all, Kevin Ronta, and we will be talking about that, no doubt about it. But look, give credit to the Minnesota Wild. I thought they dug in. I thought, we talked about the Avs needing to push early in the third period. I thought Minnesota played a strong game early. And again, give credit to Gustafsson, played really well in that for the Minnesota Wild. Meghan, I guess just on the whole, how are you feeling about the Avs being able to pull a point out of Minnesota?
Yeah, it's hard to beat up on the team for this game because period by period, I obviously didn't love the second period for the Avs, but didn't hate the first period, thought they had jump in being on the second leg of a back-to-back, and then in the third period, I thought that it kind of leveled out for them as a happy medium of the two periods, and they obviously get the game-tying goal inside that period as well. I think they eliminated some of the mistakes that they were making in that second period that made it so sloppy too. And so you mentioned in the second intermission that it seems like this team is regulating itself at this point in the season. Like the highs and the lows aren't quite so different from one to the next. And that's kind of how I feel about this game. Is it wasn't some shocking what's the word I'm looking for? Like whiplash experience for the Colorado Avalanche. And so that's why it's hard. I can't really beat up on them. It was clear that the fatigue in being on the second leg of a back-to-back had set in. Understandably, this was an important game because it is a division opponent. But to force OT in a game where you could tell they just didn't fully have their legs under them feels like a pretty decent result. And there's aspects that I like, to include the jump from the depth in this game. I think that that fourth line was an exciting source of energy throughout points. And Mackenzie Blackwood, I know doesn't get the winning result in the shootout, continues to be good for this Avs team. There's just a lot. There's more than I like than I hate.
All right. Hey, you'll take that on the second night of a back-to-back. The Avs do hit 3 posts over the course of this game. You get a little bit of puck luck, you might have a different result, but doesn't go that way. Game of inches. Meghan, the only part of this game that I really would say I did not care for in kind of a larger scale was the start of this third period. You wanted to see the Avs come out. You and I talked about empty the tank. You get a couple days off here, going to Calgary. Hey, kind of lay it all out, go out there, jump on top of the Wild, and really kind of force the issue. Like we saw the Avs do early in the first period, but it felt like it was honestly kind of the exact opposite. The Minnesota Wild took it to the Avs for the better part of the first 10 minutes, which I thought, for me, just kind of lent itself to the fact that the Avs were having to expend a lot more energy. You were having a lot of Nathan MacKinnon shifts that were taking place exclusively in the defensive zone, just burning up energy and not really being able to generate anything for you. So that was the part to me that I thought they made it a little bit harder on themselves than they needed to, not having that jump early in the third to try to get things tied, to give yourself, the bulk of that third period to try to find a lead, something like that. That was something to me that really did stand out. I felt was kind of contradictory to what we saw through the first 40.
Yeah, well, especially given the sloppiness of the second period, I would agree. I did not like the way they opened the third. I thought that they let Minnesota continue to tilt the ice in their favor, which is why I give them a little bit of credit. There's no participation trophy in the NHL, but for being able to sort of flip that script. I mean, it's even the difference of, I kind of talk about the depth, but the best scoring chance to sort of kick off the third period came from the fourth line. And you see a little bit of a tweak inside the top six. Val Nichushkin elevated back to the top line. I don't really view that as a demotion of Neches, who did give up the turnover on the goal against in the second period, but rather a testament to where Bednar places his trust. And Val Nichushkin is a player who moves things forward. He is a powerful force to be reckoned with. And I think that's what was missing in the opening minutes of the third period and kind of the intent behind that decision, and why I'd like to see the fourth line bring a little bit of energy back into the third period, that I think they were able to get it together by like the second half of the 10 minutes to conclude the third for the Avs. And it's the excitement of kind of where the goal then does come from. It is Sam Girard with the spinning move, backhand on net. And honestly, I'm not going to pretend this is some highly skilled strategic play with Ross Colton in the slot, potentially almost touching it, and then Kiviranta's body going off of him in some way. It's kind of fluky, but we talked about when you're running into a hot goaltender, as the Avs did tonight in Gustafsson, it's going to have to happen in a weird way. And so you still do have to put yourself in that position to make a goal like that happen. So I'll give them some credit for sticking with it despite being tired.
Yeah, you got ahead of me a little bit there. So let's talk about the Kivy goal. I told you, I believe it was in the first intermission. I said, look, I keep looking at this roster and I see Yoel Kiviranta on that third line. And that's the one spot on the roster that I'm saying, man, I wish they had gotten just a little bit more to improve that. But you and I were talking and you'd brought up the point, hey, goals in 3 straight games. We're seeing Kivy trend in the right direction. And I told you, hey, look, if he keeps scoring goals, I'm not going to be picky on how he does it. Well, he gets his 15th of the year tonight, Meghan, on a tip, battling in front of the net. Like you said, it's not pretty, but he finds a way to make his stick available, gets a little piece on it. From the really tight replays that I saw, didn't look like it hit Ross Colton's glove.
No.
So nice job on Kiviranta for finding a way to battle through contact there in front and get a stick on it and make a difference.
No, I like that Ross Colton is there. I see that. Sorry, my battery is dying. I see what he's going for in being available to redirect it himself. So I like that he's there. I'm glad he didn't touch it. That could have been a little bit problematic. And I like even more so that Kivy is sort of at the net front there to redirect it. That's good positioning, and it means getting to the inside ice. That's what allows this goal to happen and kind of capitalizes off of a bit of a weird thing. So I love the intent from Girard there too, because I continue to like what he did in overtime. I think that Girard was juiced up over his contributions on the tying goal there. So I liked his overtime period too. He had one of the only chances in the overtime period for either team.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about overtime here in a second. I thought that was terrible. But, with the Kiviranta goal, what I like, one, I mean, he's gotten a few empty netters in there, right? Mixed in, he had an empty net a couple nights ago as part of this 4-game goal streak. He had the hat trick early in the season where 2 of them were empty nets. So sure, that happens. Mikko Rantanen's got a ton of empty nets this year. Alex Ovechkin has a ton of empty nets this year. 15 goals for Yoel Kiviranta. I know we like to joke around, but that's real production right there for him. And what I like about tonight is it's a goal that I feel like is coming in a way that we haven't seen Yoel Kiviranta produce earlier in this season, going to the front of the net, winning battles. Now we've seen him with some really nice shots, picking corners, going to the net, finding rebounds. He's finding a lot of different ways to score. And I think if you're Jared Bednar, you got to be pretty happy with what you've gotten out of a guy that at the beginning of the season, you and I were saying, if this roster is fully healthy, he's probably that 13th forward.
What I've liked too, I don't have the official stat in front of me for Kivy, but he has come up in games that the Avs have been chasing where they kind of needed a hero. He scored in the recent San Jose game here at home, but the San Jose game on the road, the Avs were falling behind in that game, and it was Kiviranta who sort of helped to turn the tide for them. And so I think that's an important contribution from a player like that when you are looking like, all right, this top 6 is dangerous since the deadline, right? But they don't necessarily get going the way that you'd like, so much so that you see a little bit of a tweak in the third period. I'm not overly alarmed by that, but in a game where you need a hero and your top guys, they're getting stopped. This is a really good defensive Minnesota Wild team, great lane management. They're going to make it hard. Gustafsson is playing well. It's going to have to come from somewhere a little bit unexpected. And that's what I like about Kiviranta kind of being that guy over this last stretch.
So glad you just said lane management. That was something that really stuck out to me about the Wild tonight. And, we can track blocked shots, see how many shots that were going towards the net that Minnesota was able to get in front of. But it's hard to find, any kind of meaningful stats on passes blocked or, pass completion, if you will. The Minnesota Wild, I felt like, had a stick or a skate or a shin or an elbow, an arm, a glove in every single lane that the Avs tried to get through for the vast majority of this game. Like you mentioned earlier, you give the Avs credit for continuing to fight through that, and it ends up being an ugly one that does get through, takes a deflection to find its way into the net. But I think you've got to give Minnesota a lot of credit, and this is what we've seen teams do that have had good success against the Avs this year. It's pack the middle of the ice, block shots, get sticks in lanes, keep them to the outside. You don't see a lot of teams do it successfully because it's a really tough thing to do with heavy discipline, to be selling out like that and not, find yourself out of position, giving up lanes. You've got to give the Wild a lot of credit for the way that they were able to contain some of the offensive creativity of the Avs.
Yeah, you can see the attempts blocked somewhere around 23, block shots around 22. That's nearly half of what makes it to the net for Colorado. So their efforts, cut in half, almost 40 shot attempts, only about half making it to the net. I'm doing some terrible math there. Please forgive me. But you get the gist
Point
of it.
being,
that
right.
is a team that is throwing a lot Minnesota's way, and Minnesota's absorbing it very expertly. And honestly, this is just something I've noticed about them as a team, something that they do well. And so credit to some of the young defenders in that group too. It's pretty solid, and they have a good answer for how Colorado likes to create. So Colorado had to get a little bit creative.
All right. When Four Nations happened a couple weeks ago, there was all kinds of conversation about, oh my gosh, the NHL has to adopt 10-minute 3-on-3. And immediately that first podcast you and I did after, I was like, please no. Please no. I get what people think they're driving at, but it would be horrible. It would be so boring. Coaches have already found a way to strategically coach the fun out of 3-on-3. And hey, look, you're playing to win. You're not playing to have fun. You're playing to win. But Meghan, I don't know if I've ever seen a team play it as conservatively as what we just saw the Minnesota Wild do in the 3-on-3 overtime. 3 separate times I saw them get stuck in a tight spot and literally just dump it back to their own end, not make a pass, not make a play to another player, just dump it back to try to win a race going back, get a change. I thought that 3-on-3, and maybe I'm being way overly dramatic here, but that 3-on-3 was a great example for why the shootout is important. You got to get a winner eventually, and why you don't want 10-minute 3-on-3 overtime.
No, I think you see some of the vulnerabilities from an entertainment perspective of OT when you have one team that is on the second leg of a back-to-back. It felt like a strategy on behalf of Minnesota to just sort of wait it out at the start of this overtime period. Like, they're going to get tired because they're already pretty gassed. So let's apply our push a little bit later into this OT period. And it didn't really go according to plan, because I want to give the Avs some credit too. Avs were gapping up on guys, and players that had maybe not had their best night earlier, to include Netchis and Drouin, were a part of that solution, gapping up on their guys in OT, making Minnesota unable to find time and space to make better decisions with the puck, and just playing a game of keep away instead. And so I thought it was defended really well. I thought seeing Charlie Coyle out there in OT, man, it's just so clear he's such a Jared Bednar player. Like, you could just kind of tell that he really likes him. And the trust that's there, but also what Charlie Coyle does well as a player. It's clear to me that even from a coaching perspective, the Avs adopted a similar philosophy, that they were going to also kind of stick it out. But they got their looks in early with Nichushkin trying to stuff it backhand, followed by Girard. Gustafsson just came up with some brilliant saves. And so the rest was just a solid defensive masterclass from the Avs to kind of force it to a shootout. I don't know if that was entirely the intent, but they didn't allow Minnesota very much opportunity to do much. Mackenzie Blackwood comes up with a huge save on a Matt Boldy wrister in that OT period. So I want to give him some flowers because I know the shootout might not be his thing, but he is a stellar goalie in OT, and I want to give him some credit.
Well, you really put way too positive a spin on how much I was trying to drag overtime there.
It was really boring. I didn't like it. You guys, I'm sick. I'm tired.
No, I'm just giving you shit.
I have a confession, you guys. I even set a timer, like, if I accidentally fall asleep, I don't want to miss the post game.
No, and I'm totally just giving you a hard time because you are right. Like, part of what I found frustrating, and Matt Boldy, he's on my list for the way he played in overtime. There was 7 seconds left, and he turned the puck around. It's like, there's 7 seconds left. Where are you going? What are you trying to accomplish with that? But you are right. Like, the Avs defended well in overtime. They didn't give up a lot. I thought the communication was good. You saw a couple times Minnesota Wild tried to drop the puck, cause confusion on players trying to switch or whatever. I thought the Avs communicated well. I thought they played. You are 100% right. They defended really well in that overtime. I just hated the fact that there didn't seem to be an ounce of the Minnesota Wild that wanted to push the pace, drive towards the net. It was, no, if we get an absolutely picture perfect look, we'll take a shot. But otherwise, we're just going to turn things around, go back, reset, and wait for another lane. And even when they turned the puck over, they just immediately sunk back into the neutral zone. And I hated the way that Minnesota played that overtime. To me, it actually looked like Minnesota was trying to kill time to get to the shootout, feeling that they'd maybe fare a little bit better there. But I don't know. I just could not believe how much Minnesota seemed disinterested in moving the play north.
I thought the other weird thing about it was Colorado was getting a couple different players out there in OT, and Minnesota stuck to like the same, 5 or 6 guys rotating in or out with some pretty extended shifts for their units. And I couldn't fully understand the reasoning behind it. Like, they are a lot fresher in terms of how they should be feeling.
Totally.
Avs are kind of forced to get a couple of guys out there, whereas they opted to do it. And I just didn't know if there's a lack of trust because they are missing so many people that they just maybe didn't play that OT how they ordinarily would if they were at fuller health.
All right, let's start to wind things down a bit here. Let's talk about the shootout. You mentioned it with Mackenzie Blackwood. You and I said not off the topic, off air, right before we got started. Shootouts just might not be Mackenzie Blackwood's thing. We've seen him in 2, I believe, now here in Colorado. I don't think he's come up with a save yet on one, and he got beat kind of bad on both of those goals. But hey, look, to your point, you can live with that. You can live with the fact that you have a goalie who maybe doesn't love the shootout. You don't have shootouts in the playoffs. And this Avs team is pretty good at keeping those few and far between. I thought the Avs shooters in the shootout were the best representation of just how tired and maybe mentally fatigued this group was.
Yeah, you could see like a tiny bit of frustration from McKinnon on just the decision making for his shootout move, and obviously Netchess kind of slips up on the puck. So I think that it is a reflection of a tired team because I think they normally pose more of a threat in the shootout, truthfully. And yeah, Mackenzie Blackwood, it's almost funny how he kind of becomes a different goalie in the shootout. And what I mean is it's as if he operates better when there's a little bit like the game is more multidimensional. You're having to account for a defender in front of you, and you're having to account for, I don't know.
Just the chaos of a play, right?
The chaos of a play. It's like he's made better with the chaos.
Well, and like we've even seen him on multiple occasions have to come up really big in succession on breakaways, multiple breakaways in a game, 2-on-1s. So it's not like he just can't play a player 1-on-1.
No, he can.
But I do wonder, to your point, if, when a player's coming on a breakaway, they're coming with speed, there's guys coming behind them, they're having to make quick decisions. I wonder if Mackenzie Blackwood just doesn't do well when players are able to kind of come in, take it slow, really kind of wind and weave their way through the zone. I wonder if that's just maybe what trips him up. And like you said, just kind of makes him a different goaltender. But like I said, I have no issues with a goaltender that struggles in a shootout. You hope that you don't get to that point very often, and you get to a certain point, and that just it's not a rule. It's not going to happen.
No, yeah, he just, in game, through traffic, he sees pucks well. It's sort of funny then that the shootout can be his Achilles heel. You can live with that for sure.
You can live with it. Let's put a bow on this one and get out of here for tonight. Kind of, 2 games in a row that kind of boring, a little bit slow moving. The Avs find a way to pull 3 points out of 4 in this back-to-back. Meghan, any final thoughts, not only on this game, but what you want to see? Like I said, like we had said, 2 days off here, then you get Calgary Friday. What do you want to see here over the next couple days into that game against the Flames?
Yeah, that's a big game. They'll have a little bit of time to practice together as a team with some of the new players, because it has felt like the new players got into town, jumped into games, had an off day, and then they got into another game, second leg of a back-to-back. It's just kind of been this weird schedule where I don't think they've had enough of a good full practice with everybody together yet. So I think that'll be huge for them to have that under their belt and bond while on the road too, and grow a little bit closer. So, I can chalk up the weirdness of the Chicago game, because those games are always a little bit weird. Yeah. And I can chalk up this to being the second leg of a back-to-back. So Calgary's a clean slate. Like, they should be really recharged for that game. They should be hopefully feeling a little bit more good about what they're trying to do together. So my expectation gets higher for Friday.
I like the point. It hadn't really gone through my mind of getting this group out on the road for a week when you've only got to play 2 games. It's a really good opportunity to get the team together, get some dinners, hang out at the hotel, things like that, without having to go on this grueling, 4 games in 8 days road trip. No, you get to go get 5 days on the road with this new group that you've got here and just play a couple games. I largely agree with everything that you said. I think you should feel good about where you're at. I think here in the last week and a half, you've had a few games where you've had to grind out wins and points, and I think they've done that. Which you got to feel good about the mix of this group post deadline and just kind of the early returns you've seen. A long way to go. A lot of things you want to clean up, a lot more comfortable. You want to get certain players. But I think here through these first 3 games that we've gotten to see post deadline, Jared Bednar's probably feeling pretty good. On the whole, you would have liked 2 points tonight, but on the whole, you're probably feeling pretty good about what this group is looking like.
Yeah, it feels like it only goes up from here. There's so much more optimism because there are options, there's depth, and
yes,
it just feels different from before. Because, there'd be games like, the Avs didn't capitalize on the power play, we're cooked, they need to fire Ray Bennett into the sun. And instead I'm feeling like, okay, they've got lots of options that are new to them on the power play. I want to see them kind of figure out what they're comfortable with, because they can always go back to Jonathan Drouin and Arturi Lehkonen.
Right.
They always have that in their back pocket. But I kind of want to see what these new guys add to it too. So there's a little bit of fun around this time of year.
Right. And, Jared Bednar talked to us, I think it was last night, in terms of, he likes to experiment with his lines pre-playoffs. He's not going to have quite that luxury. They're in a little bit of a tighter race right now than they have maybe been in the last couple of years. But yeah, he's going to try different looks, knowing that we know Jared Bednar likes his safety blankets, of lines, of combinations, and he'll go back to that stuff as needed. I do got to get in this one last thing before we get out of here. I tweeted it out today. Look, I know Jared Bednar is not going to win Coach of the Year every year, and I'm not saying that, I have no problem with Spencer Carberry in Washington being the front runner right now for the Jack Adams, what he's done with that group, way overachieved. But NHL.com put out their list today of their top 3 finalists plus 4th and 5th who received votes. Jared Bednar nowhere in the top 5 for Jack Adams voting, Meghan. And again, you're not going to win it all the time and any of that. No problem with Spencer Carberry. But what he's been able to do with this group, given 47, 48 different players in the lineup this year, I thought he'd get a little bit more recognition than not even top 5.
No, I agree. I found it a little bit shocking, but I also feel like Bednar gets left out of the conversation a lot. So I've stopped being surprised, because I think the names that are there belong there in a lot of ways. Include Carberry and Dean Evison and what he's done for 100%. Columbus this year. For them to be in the position that they're in is pretty remarkable too. So I think there's some names that certainly belong there, but I think are we up to now 45 different players have had
47.
Holy 47 different players in an Avs uniform this year to be where they're at in the Central Division, despite that uncertainty in trying to navigate different lines and different D pairs with that much rotation in the lineup is kind of crazy to me. You don't have really any semblance of consistency, so to get results from that is also pretty remarkable, and we can give it praise. I don't think he gets enough recognition.
I'm with you. All right, that's going to do it for tonight. Avs do drop this one in Minnesota, 2-1 in the shootout. They do pull a point out, stay 3 points ahead of the Wild in the Central Division standings. The Avs right now holding on to that third spot in the Central. The playoffs started today. They're going on the road to play the Dallas Stars, who are off until Friday, Megan. 4 days off for the Dallas Stars. The next 2 days are off for the Avs as they head to Calgary to take on the Flames on Friday. Another big one. The Flames are a team looking to push their way into the playoffs, so you know that they'll have their jump. A couple days off for the Avs could be good. And to Megan's point from earlier, you can get that new group of guys, an opportunity to gel a little bit here over the next couple days. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano's Guerrilla Sports Off Ice Post Game Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. Pucks and Prosecco tomorrow with Megan and Chloe. Got a special guest coming into the studio. Looking forward to that. So, Megan, you go get in bed so you can be fresh and ready for that tomorrow. Feel better. Thanks so much, everyone, for stopping by. We'll talk to you guys. More great content coming your way tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.